You are now tuned in to the Project 365 experience.
It is with an immense pleasure that I get to welcome Canada's best kept secret in the past 2 years, the head coach of William Academy, Mr. Mike Chambers. Coach Mike, Coach Chambers. What do you prefer, Coach Mike, Coach Chambers?
Either one's good, man. Either one's good. The kids go with either one, man.
Oh, Mike, how you doing?
I'm good, brother. How are you, man?
I'm doing really good. I'm doing really good. Okay, I don't know where to start because, obviously the basketball world is super small. We have a
Yeah.
lot of people in common. So let me ask you this: like, what is for you the biggest challenge in just navigating the basketball world right now as a coach? I like to throw them curveballs right off.
Yeah,
You
right?
know what I mean? What's the most challenging part?
Definitely the biggest challenge. I mean, and you know this firsthand because you're from Montreal, correct?
Hmm.
And just one of the biggest challenges, especially the last couple of years, because being this away from home for me, right? It's a big sacrifice, man, right?
Mm.
Financially away from your family, all that kind of stuff. Because where I was coaching before, it was local, right? So now I'm, 2 hours away from home, away from my fiance all the time, friends, family. So managing that while trying to stay, positive for the boys that are here that are doing the same sacrifice and trying to make sure that they understand that they're not the only ones that are in the mix of that, right? Because we got guys here that are from Nigeria, Turks and Caicos. I mean, even kids that are from where I live that are still 2 hours away that aren't used to being away from their parents, right? Um, that's a tough one because I mean, probably every week I talk to my guys all the time because someone's going through some type of mental battle, right? That they gotta push through and talk to somebody that's going through the same experience, right?
That's a big one right there. Um, as coaches, I think a lot of times like we don't really understand really. Like we think sometimes it's easy to just get caught up. Let
Hmm.
me change what I said. It's easy to get caught up in just like the basketball part and everything. So I'm
Right?
gonna attack it from two different angles, right? Talk about the importance of having somebody like your fiance that understands, you know, your purpose, what it is that you want, and just how easy it is to make when you find somebody that understands what you're going through and is willing to go through it with you.
Oh man, it's huge. It's huge because it's interesting from her perspective because she's sacrificing for my sacrifice, right? So
Mhm.
for me to do this, it's fairly easy, right? Because like yourself, like this is our passion, like this is what we want to do, right? So this was the goal, but for her, this has never been a goal for
I
her.
didn't sign up for this, bro.
Yeah, yeah, this has never been a goal for her, right? But I mean, we've been together for, it'll be 8 years in January, right? So from the get-go, she knew this is what I was all about, right? I mean, I started coaching 10 years ago, and 2 years in, she was a part of that process, right? So she always knew that this was a situation and that could happen, and further situations could happen where we might have to travel somewhere else. But, some days are tougher for her and some days aren't, right? But she tries to stay as positive as she can because, back home she's on her own, right?
Hmm. So for you, also, you mentioned how sometimes you have to um, be present, be there for the boys, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like um, that one hit, man. Because I think like for me also it's something that I need to do constantly every day, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So it's just
Yeah.
like talk about a couple of ways that you're talking about how can you stay present for your players.
Yeah, man. I mean, lucky for me, I mean, we're a boarded school here, so I'm with the guys 24/7, right? So I really, really get to know, who they are, their backgrounds, their family, if they got a girlfriend back home and stuff like that. So, it's you start to learn their body languages, right? So even if they're not willing to talk about it, because obviously that's the hardest part is being willing to actually just like want to talk to somebody about it. I can see when they have off days. So, before practice or after practice, I'll be like, hey man, like, you good? Like, you just seem mentally off. And I feel like if you just reassure them that, you're checking up on them and stuff like that, they're more willing to open up
Hmm.
and come to you and be like, hey coach, like, I got a question to ask. And I'm just going through some stuff mentally, or if it's school or whatever it is. But I try not to pry too much.
Hmm.
Like, I
Yeah.
feel like if you pry too much, like it'll kind of push them away
Yeah.
in a sense, right? But
Yeah.
if you just kind of reassure them every day, like, hey, dude, like I'm here if you need me, right?
Right.
If you do that enough, then sooner or later they'll they'll open up the door for you, I find.
Yeah. It's funny because even for me, like I remember, I think a month back, like I had a situation with um one of my players, and it was exactly the same thing like what you're saying. Like just the way he walked through the door,
Right?
I was like,
Immediate.
yeah, you're not good today. What's going on? And obviously, like it's all. Let's keep it a stack. As men, a lot of times we're kind of taught to just like, hey, deal with it. Like, yo,
Yeah, right?
move on to the next thing and whatnot. And talking with people is not something that is put on like that pedestal of helping me get better or helping me push through. You know,
100%.
and that was the thing where it was for me. It was like, yo, you're around these guys so much that you recognize like just the patterns, just body movement, just attacking a certain drill, talking with somebody and whatnot. You just know.
Oh yeah.
And you've had like situations like that where like you just like just something so small that maybe somebody from the outside wouldn't be able to recognize, wouldn't be able to see. You ever had
Yeah,
one?
it's immediate, man. Like, I mean, I see these guys in the hallway all the time, right? Even if I like when I walk past them, I go, "Hey, man, what's up?"
What's up?
Even the way they go about like fist bumping me or saying, "Hey, coach," like it's immediate. You can see it in their shoulders, you can see it in their eyes, like little things that even their teammates probably don't pick up on because
Yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah,
just like, "Oh, whatever, man. It's another day, right?"
yeah. It- I'm gonna hit on something because we're heading in the direction that I think we could help a lot of people. And like as coaches, a lot of times you have to be very emotionally present for others.
Hmm.
How do you kind of like, but when it comes to maybe other people or your support group to have be emotionally present for you, um we sometimes like we forget about that part. So obviously you mentioned a little bit about how it is, you having a partner that understands that and whatnot, but talk about when you go about maybe hiring like your assistant coaches. You're in a private school, maybe the director of athletics, talk about like just like the outside people that help you make the job better, and that has helped William Academy kind of get to, I'm going to say it, get to this kind of prominent role where they're showcasing what they have to do now.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we don't have, I mean, I don't have any assistant coaches currently, but I'm lucky enough to where my athletic directors, I have three. So I have Donovan Wright, Michael Duncan, and Farley Flex. Um, and they're great. They're great mentors for me. I mean, Michael Duncan and Donovan Wright, they played high level football. Donovan played in the CFL. Farley Flex is, he's big in the music community, but he's also really big in just the community based. And he's a really big focus for me for learning the mental aspect of it.
Hmm.
That's his main role here in the organization. Why Donovan brought him in.
Hmm.
So I learn a lot from him every day. Like the way he speaks about certain things when it comes to the mental toughness side of things and mentally being aware to certain things. He's just one of those guys that every time he speaks, I feel like I learn something from him every single time, right?
Hmm.
He has so much life experience, because he deals with a lot of incarcerated individuals with his business, and he helps them, you know, get jobs out of prison and get them out and, create a better life for them when they do get out, right? So he comes to the school every 2 weeks to talk to the boys about certain things. And in turn, he's teaching me at the same time.
Hmm.
right? Whether he he knows it or not, I'm pretty sure he does, but he's very aware in that sense. And in the last 2 years since I've met him, he's really, really opened my eyes about being more aware about that stuff because I was blind to it before,
Yeah. Hmm.
I just let it happen. I was like, ah, he's just having a rough day. It is what it is. But you really start to learn that it goes deeper than what you might think it is, right?
Yeah. Talk a bit about where you guys are at. Talk a bit about actually your program, William Academy. Talk a bit about it for the people who may not know.
Yeah, man. So we're a program based out of Coburg
Mhm.
called William Academy. We actually have two campuses. There's one in Scarborough, which is more for local students, and the campus that we're at here is for the international students. So they have students from everywhere, from Vietnam, China, Japan, Russia, Ukraine, Iran. They got students from everywhere here, which is really kind of cool to see all those different countries come together and get to know each other and stuff like that, especially with the world that we live in right now.
Trust me.
But it's a great place though, man. I mean, it's a very small student body. There's only about 60 students here, right? So when it comes to the academic side, it's great for the students, right? So it's very hands-on. I think there's about max that I've seen so far since I've been here, 10 students in a class would be the max that you get.
Hmm.
So you don't become just a number in the classroom, right? Because I know regular public schools, from what I'm being told now, is like 40, 45 to a classroom.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
just, which is crazy, right? And some kids that come here tell us it's kind of nice to have that hands-on, and there's a lot of teachers that can actually take time to help them out. Because we've had some students that we take in, they're not very strong academically, but luckily when they come here, it's so hands-on, and there's a lot of time for study hall and other teachers and principals helping them out, that they're what I'm finding is their grades go up by at least 10 to 15% by the time they get here, which
Hmm.
is which is really, really good because we really focus on the academic side of things, which is why the partnership that my athletic director has with the school was just it was such a great choice when he was deciding to start a program.
Hmm. Hmm. So it's um, like that's one of the big, like I think, I would say, I think I want to kind of like help parents be a bit more aware of.
Mm.
Um, obviously with this, we're in the age where like everybody and their mama want to start a prep school. You
Right?
know what I'm
Oh,
saying? Like it's
crazy.
it's
I
all
feel like every year there's like 30 new teams.
you know what I'm saying? But it's like I think the blend of that, like if somebody's going to invest, it sounds crazy to say, but you don't necessarily have to just look at basketball resume per se. Like it has to be a good fit for you. And I think like kids nowadays are starting to are almost like being recruited, but at the high school age, right? So they're kind of going through what potentially they would go through when they have to find a university, but they're going through it earlier.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like you got to kind of like find that mix. And I love what you said about the academic portion. Um, that it's something that you see the grades automatically go up.
Hmm.
And I've personally said, I don't know if you've ever had a situation like that, but like the two go together, whether you like it or not. Like
Oh, yeah, 100%.
if I don't go do good in school, like a lot of times I'm gonna spend more time focusing and studying on my schooling, and then my basketball kind of takes a hit, and all that balancing out. But it sounds like you guys got something good going.
Yeah, yeah. We try the way the boys like day-to-day schedule is, I tell guys who are new to the program, I'm like, it seems like a lot because the way their day is set from 6 a.m. in the morning till 9 p.m. every hour is set, right? So I tell them like it seems like a lot because it's all put in place for you, but it makes your life easy because we've put certain hours in the day to where you can get everything done that you need to get done,
Hmm.
right? As long as you're just taking the time that we give you to do your homework or to do your extra training that you need to do for basketball, you'll be okay. You just got to stay structured to the timelines that are given to you, right? Because a lot of kids that come in, they're not used to the discipline structure of having that type of timeline in their day. They're used to just going to school, come home, doing training, whatever. They're not used to having a study hall time set for an hour every day. They're not used to having, 3 hours at the end of the day to either choose to do more schooling or to do more training at the end of the day.
Hmm. And so I'm just trying to kind of like understand, like, so talk to me about how, so you have the two campuses. Like, how do you guys go about to, like, let's say we have a team. Like, can people from both campuses be on, let's say, a team, or is it just like a specific campus? Like, how does
No,
that?
so we stay specific to the Coburg campus
Okay, okay, yeah,
just
got
because
you,
it's full board here too, so it works perfect.
got you.
We really like to keep the boys all together so they can really start to build chemistry off the court too.
Yeah.
And it makes it easy too because we do have a fair amount of international players
Hmm.
or players coming from another province. I think almost half of our team is from either a different province or another country, right? So it makes it a lot easier
Right,
for those guys to be able to stay together with everybody.
right. This is definitely going to be like a funny one, but I need to talk about recruitment with you.
Hmm.
Okay, recruitment I find is very interesting because, like, depending on which situation you're in, depending on, obviously your style and all that kind of stuff, certain coaches are able to recruit to potentially what they envision their style to be, right?
Hmm.
You're in a situation where things are probably a bit more fluid, where, like, from year to year there may be a change and you have to integrate certain players that potentially haven't been recruited, but we got to make it work.
Hmm.
I want to know how adaptable is everything that you do basketball wise to help these kids that come in to have the biggest chance to have a success.
Yeah, man. I mean, I tell my guys at the beginning of the year all the time. I'm always willing to change things up to find success for the team and for individuals, right? Obviously, there's going to be certain principles and certain standards that we have to live by, and certain principles that you're going to do every day to become a better basketball player. But when it comes to the X's and O's of things and sets and defenses and all that kind of stuff, you do have to be very adaptive, right? Because you might have in your mind from highlight reels or game film that you think this guy's going to play a certain way, but then once he starts playing with the other guys you've had for 2 3 years, his game doesn't really fit with it. So you gotta figure it out, right? So for example, like a guy like Makir from last year, right? He came in and he was very passive at first, and from what I saw was he was a very Swiss Army knife type player. He could do everything. He could hit the mid range. He could hit the three. He could create off the dribble and do all that kind of stuff. And at first, he was trying to play, you know, Landon and Emmanuel's type of way of playing. He was kind of giving them the ball and stuff like that. And I remember the first 2 weeks, he was just like, "Hey, coach, like, so what more do you want me to do?" I was like, "Dude, we need you to be you. Like, you can't change your game to these guys, right? We brought you in for a reason because you play the way you play, and we'll adapt our system to where all three of you and everybody else can fit together, right?"
Mhm.
And sometimes the boys, they when I tell them, "Hey, we got a new thing we're going to learn today," and we're 6 months into the season, they're like, "Okay, coach," like, "Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, coach," right? But I mean, and I know you're like this, like I'm a game film junkie, right? So
Hmm.
I'm always on YouTube looking at universities practices, plays, all type of sets that they do because you could find that one thing that could change the entire success of your team, right?
Hmm.
Or a certain player that you want to get going that just hasn't really been getting the looks that you think he should be getting.
Hmm.
Right? So sometimes I'll throw in a playbook and half that playbook is gone by the end of the year and there's half
100%.
half new things, right? So And the boys kind of understand that now, and it's to the point where even some of the boys who have been here for 2 3 years are sending me videos of
Yeah, yo,
certain
do this.
where they're like, hey coach, like I saw this the other day, like it looked pretty interesting, and I'm like, oh okay, like that's good though. Like I'm glad that some of that kind of rubs off on them to where they're trying to be students of the game in that way. So it's good, man. Yeah, but you definitely have to be you really have to be adaptive because I find if you get stuck in your way, like it hurts the team
Mm,
players than it does help them
hmm.
be successful, right?
Yeah, it's like you go into it, you're like, yo, we're gonna play it this way, and
Yeah,
then it's almost like you're forcing people into a box. You know what I mean?
100%.
So it's so funny that you're saying that. Like, I gotta stay on this. It's so funny you're saying that because I think for me, that was like I think the most eye opening. Like, if people come to my practices, like people, like I think for me, the biggest thing that I think people will take away from me is just that there's constant communication with my players,
Hmm.
and I know it's a bit different than I grew up kind of like with a coach that would kind of, this is what we have to do. We have to do this, do that, and it's like it worked until a certain extent, but I kind of feel like um making people feel important in a way
Hmm.
and making them feel valued. I think that helps like the whole machine roll the way that it has to.
Yeah, 100%, man.
And that's the thing for me. Like, it's like if you come into my practice, you'll see like, yo, the vibes are good. I'm talking with the players. We're talking. They're talking. Some of them are on the shot clock. We're giving them the board. They're kind of going on. Okay, we're running this. We're gonna. But again, like you said, you gotta get them to stimulate their minds.
Hmm.
So what do you think for you is one way that um that is very easy for you, not very easy, but one way for you that you found is very productive in helping them develop that kind of like that IQ and
I
just
think,
understanding everything.
I
Yeah.
mean, first and foremost, like it's just you get just being honest with them, right? About who they are as a player, what they're really, really, really good at, right?
Hmm.
And making sure that you're doing the thing that you're special at first,
Mm.
doing the things secondary, right? So, for example, like I got a guy on my team who's probably, like, in my mind, he's one of the best guard defenders around, right?
Hmm.
So when there's another star point guard on the other team, I'm going, yo, you have him, no one else has him, and I don't even have to worry about it,
Hmm.
right? And as long as he's doing that, anything else he does outside of that, I'm good with,
It's a bonus.
right? As long
Yeah.
as you're taking good shots, good decisions, all that kind of stuff, that's just a bonus, right? But it's making sure they understand right out the get, hey, you're really, really, really good at this. You have to do this no matter what, right? And then everything else that we learn and we teach you, that's just a bonus that we're going to add to your game, right? And
Mm.
it's just making sure that they're aware of that. Like after like post game huddles, when we're talking, myself, Donovan, and Farley, like we make sure that we go one by one to the guys who are in the game, going, "Hey, man, you locked that guy up today. That's exactly what we want from you." Right? Or, for example, we have Makir's little brother on the team this year, Dang, who
Mm.
can just shoot the lights out of the ball, right? And there's some games where, he missed a couple at the beginning of the season and he stopped shooting. And I got to call a timeout being like, hey, man, you are an absolute lights out shooter. You cannot not shoot the ball.
Hmm.
Right? I was like, if you don't shoot the ball, right, you're not helping the team succeed and you're not helping yourself.
Mm.
So it's stuff like that where you gotta keep reassuring them, even when it goes bad. If you're getting, you're gonna get scored on. Even it doesn't matter how elite of a guard you are, you're gonna get scored on. But you just gotta keep reassuring them, hey man, this is what you do, right? You gotta keep pushing and doing what you do best. Because I find when they get discouraged, when they miss a couple shots, they start going away from it, and then they start going too outside the box of trying to do other things because their go-to isn't working, right? Which is good. You want to try doing that. But I find if you stay away from what you're good at best, right, you're hurting yourself more than anything.
Oh man, you're giving me goosebumps, man. This is exactly down my wheelhouse because it's almost like your strength, self-awareness is key. Okay. And I think as coaches, we have to do a better job at helping our players be self-aware. The reality is not everybody's going to be able to play the same way. That's just a
No,
reality, right?
100%.
But what we can do is help the players understand and be self-aware of their strength. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
you're a really dynamic downhill player. You have a really quick first step. I need you to get me as many paint touches as possible. Going back to what you said, hey, you're a really good shooter. Whenever you open and you have space, you have to put eyes on the rim,
Mm-hmm.
right? Hey, you are probably the biggest player in this game right now. You being at the rim, I know you want to shoot threes. I get it. But you being at the rim gives us a lot of value right now.
Yeah, man.
Being able to be self-aware with our players and helping them understand that this is your strength in this game because it's adjustable, right? Certain times, certain matchups, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sticking to your strength, just like what you said, opens up the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Where like now you were talking about Dang potentially is just being able to have eyes on the rim. Now you got to close out. Oh, and now it's opening up the rest of the game.
Exactly. Exactly. And in turn is opening up all your teammates, right? Something as simple as, if you have a big, the same kind of situation, if you have a big that's athletic and dominant and fast, something as simple as rim running every single play, right? Even if you don't get the ball, you rim running, you know that if you catch it on that rim run, that more times than not, you're probably going to get up, dunk it, and finish it.
Mm-hmm.
You do that 1, 2 times to start the game. Now the defense is worried as hell about you. And the next 5 times you go down, you might not get it, but now we got our shooter in the corner that's wide open because everybody's so worried about you, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then in turn, it goes back to what I was saying. Just because you're not getting the ball doesn't mean you should stop doing that, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not, at some point that rim run's going to be open, and
Yeah.
you're going to be able to take flight, right?
Mm-hmm. I find that's the most challenging part. I don't know if you have tricks or you have like little things that you've gone through in your coaching journey, but like sometimes it's like when you start off the game, like I always think about it as like, let's say, um water, right? When you start off the game, the water's full, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to find like a lot of times, like if for instance a big does a pick and roll and doesn't get the ball, the water starts becoming more empty, more empty, more empty. And then by like the second half, this big is not rolling to the basket anymore.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you have observed as a coach, some different things that or if that has even happened and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough one because it changes from player to player depending on who it is, right? Because some guys who, want the ball on the perimeter more that, think they're open and guys are, maybe they're driving into 2, 3 guys and they think they should be kicking it out and stuff like that. It's just kind of re-locking them into good communication to each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're different about it, right? Some guys have outbursts about it towards their teammates. Some guys are quiet about it. But the big one is just we make sure our guys communicate everything, right? And that starts off the floor before they're even on the court. We make sure their communication is on point with each other. Um, Something that I like to do, and this is something that I've done recently, probably in the last month, is I kind of refocus them on just the intangibles of the game rather than, the scoring or, getting steals and stuff like that. Before we start games, I don't even talk about really what plays we're going to run and stuff like that. I really focus them on, make sure our weak side box outs are good. We're sprinting back on defense, right? Although all those little things I find when you focus on the intangibles of the game, they're not really focused on, hey, I'm not getting the ball or I'm missing shots and stuff like that. It kind of just hones their mind back into okay, we got to do the little details and not the stuff that's going to show on highlight reels or mix six or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, 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 yeah. Process over result.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Hmm. I find like that's also a good way to think about it because like a lot of like as coaches, I think that was the first like eye-opening moment that I've had. Like as coaches, like a lot of times like they'll shoot a shot. When it goes in, we give them, hey, good job, good shot, da 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 da. But a lot of times it's just a decision that we have to reinforce, right? That's what
Yeah.
we got to be more focused on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So okay, so I wanna ask you about different ways that you attack a defense, right? Um, we talked a bit about adaptability, but I want to know what are some different ways that per se that you're looking at, let's say another team, and obviously this is a little bit tough because you don't have like a specific scenario in front of you, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if I'm looking at a team, how am I determining what advantage I have on this team?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like it's very situational based, right?
Hmm.
Like if
Hmm.
if you have a team that you're playing that you realize isn't very athletic or doesn't have much size, obviously you want to try and run, personally I would try and run a little bit more, four out, one in and get our bigs going and start working from the inside out, stuff like that. Or maybe a team is, bigger and slower and we've noticed, hey, they can't really sprint the floor. So we'll change our game to where, maybe we'll push in transition way more than we usually do.
Hmm.
Or a team is very good at pressing the ball and picking up full court, and we got to try and slow our game down a bit and be efficient in the half court and doing all those things, right? So, like you said, it comes back to that adaptability,
Hmm.
right? And just making sure that the boys are aware of how we're going to play. And even if we have an imagination of, hey, we're going to play fast today, and we come out the gate and we're horrible in transition offense and we're not running back in transition defense, then we got to change it up and start slowing it down for 4 or 5 minutes and running our half court sets and trying to get just good looks and not volume looks at that point,
Hmm.
right? But
Hmm.
yeah, that's a tough one because that's very like situation by situation based on who you're playing.
It is. It is. And it's like I wanted to kind of like just have like a general idea, general view of how it is that you saw it. Because like you said, you mentioned that we're like, yeah, we'll start off one day. This is what we want to do.
Hmm.
But then the game happens.
Yeah, I
And
mean, the
what
first 2 minutes it could go south right
yeah,
away.
um, like everybody got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, exactly.
um, I also want to ask you like obviously when the game happens, right? And let's say you're taking a timeout. I don't know if you can visualize it. You take a timeout. We started off with a plan and it didn't work out, right? They're like, what we thought was we were gonna get at the beginning of the game, we don't get it. What's the balance that you have between, hey, we have to change what it is that we're doing, right? This is the adjustment, or guys, we're just not playing hard. We're just not playing hard enough. There's no adjustment to make. We're just not playing hard enough.
Yeah, it's that fine balance of, I always come back to the intangibles of the game, like I said, right? I gotta refocus them on the little things, and then again, just being adaptive. Like for me, I change defenses on the fly like it's nobody's business, right? So
I get
like make or miss, like I'm changing the hell out of our defense. So if a team is getting comfortable in our man to man, I'll immediately switch it up into a 2-3 or 3-2 or a 1-3-1 or a 2-2-1 press, whatever it is, and I'll throw it at them for two possessions and then change it up to another one and then change it up to another one because the team is getting too comfortable, right? And the beauty of that is now, just like how the boys send me plays, my boys will come up to me on a free throw and be like, "Hey, coach, should we switch it to this defense or should we switch it to this or should we call this play because that play's not working?" Right? So I just I love being adaptive like that, and I love that it rubs off on my players,
Hmm.
right? Because wherever they go, right, their their coach at the next level is not going to be like me,
Hmm.
and they're right. So they have to be adaptive once they get their foot in the door, right?
Hmm.
And be like, oh, okay, like this coach plays this way. Okay, so we've done that before, so I know how to do that, right? And that's another side of being adaptive as a coach, especially at our level,
Yeah.
right? Is I have a guy for 2 3 years. He's gone in 2 3 years, right? So he
Right.
needs to learn how to play every which way in a half court set, in a motion, in a certain set where he's stuck in this spot and he's going to move at this exact time,
Hmm.
right? So there's different styles that I make them play at, and they might not realize it now, but it's
Hmm.
to their advantage once they get to that next level, right?
Absolutely. And it's like it speaks volume to what you guys have done at William Academy. Like, in all honesty, you guys have popped on my radar for the past 2 years, right? 2 years that where like I started taking notice, and
Mm.
like you could see it. And even like, for the listeners who don't know, McKeer is now at Florida Southwest, and he was a BioSteel All Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
So coming out of a school where, let's say, we got 60 students, for him to be able to quote unquote showcase and prove to people, a lot of the credit is on him for being able to have the work ethic and all that kind of stuff. But it speaks a lot to what you guys have, because, seeing him in that BioSteel All Canadian game didn't look out of place, man.
No, not at all. That was the first thing that we noticed, man. He
Yeah.
looked he looked like he belonged when he came in, man. That was the fun part to see, right?
Mm,
Obviously, he didn't play as many as the 5-star recruits that were in there, but he came in and played his game for the minutes that he had, right? So
exactly.
no, it was good to see. Yeah, it was good to see, man. But like to speak on McKeer more, like because he was from Thunder Bay, right? So in Thunder Bay, they they don't have any exposure down there, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
To the world down here, and from the time that he had here, he took full advantage of his time here. He took every opportunity to showcase who he was, introducing himself to certain scouts and stuff like that. And it was nice to see because he's the first player that we've had graduate so far in the program,
Mm,
right? So he's a story that I use all the time that hey, you might only be here for 8 months, right? But you can do a lot in those 8 months, right? And Makir was a prime candidate to show, hey, it's possible to do whatever you want at 8 months. You just got to put in the time and put in the effort, right?
love that. Love that. So, well, thank you so much for like just voicing everything and just like speaking. And it's like it speaks volume to what you guys have going on. So, my final question to you is, as a coach, what is the best thing you like to do on your off time?
On my off time, I mean,
If off time even exists for you.
I know that's the thing, right? Like, there's not much off time. Like even when I'm outside of practice or like even today I'm going home for 2 3 days. I'm still going to be looking at game film or
Mhm.
looking on social media at different drills and stuff like that. Um, definitely downtime. I grew up on video games,
Okay. Yeah.
so that's kind of like my mental escape probably
Mhm.
from the chaos. So I try and get in a little bit time to just get away from it, but part of me it's an itch I can't scratch. I go right back to looking at game film and stuff. It's to the point where my fiance, I'll be laying at bed at 11 o'clock at night, and she's hearing shoes squeaking on my phone.
Yeah.
She's like, "You got to turn down the volume. Like I can't listen to shoes squeaking anymore." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, okay."
Thank you so much, man. Holy. So actually, I have one final question for you.
Hmm.
Um, as coaches who want to get better, right? What would you say is like the best investment coaches can do or coaches can make?
I mean, the best investment is just like, especially if you're starting out. I mean, it's just at least I found, and I'm glad I went about it doing it this way, is I started, in the low rep programs, and I tried to just put in as much time as you can, right? I mean, if this is truly your passion and this is something you really really want to do and you want to help some kids out and, you know, wherever, get them to their high school team or their local high school team or get them to D1 or U Sports, whatever it is, man, just try and get as much experience as you can and invest in that time, right? Because when I first started out, I mean, I was coaching two, three teams at a time,
I know the vibes.
trying to get as much exposure and experience as I can, right? Because as young coaches, you're coaching against guys who are 50, 60 years old sometimes, who have so much more experience than you and have seen way more than you have, and you gotta play catch up quite a bit, especially at our level where you're playing some of the better programs in the country and coaching against guys. And I haven't had the experience of it, but say coaching against a guy like Charles at Fort Erie,
Hmm.
you're in for a whirlwind of a chess
Hmm.
game,
Hmm.
right? So it's really putting in the time and learning how to do the ins and outs of the game and slowing down the game in a different way, right? Because I find slowing down the game as a player is very, very different than slowing down the game as a coach, right? Because you got to really take a step back and observe the game differently, right? Because sometimes, there's coaches who are talking all the time to their players, yelling everything all the time, and I learned over the years that sometimes you just got to sit back for a couple minutes and just watch the game and see it go by, right?
Hmm.
It takes time. It takes a lot of game film. It takes a lot of watching live games. Just the amount of time you have to put in as a coach is tremendous.
Like your brain it never actually stops. You know what I'm saying? Like you're driving home, you're probably gonna try to listen to a podcast. You're probably thinking about, yo, I should in this last game, I should have made this adjustment. It never stops.
Oh, it becomes an obsession, man. Like I explain this to some of my friends when I'm out and I'm talking. I'm like, dude, it's no longer like a love for the game. Like it's an absolute obsession. And the way I put it, and it sounds bad sometimes, but when I'm talking to certain people, I'm paying attention to what they're saying, but in the back of my head, there's another gear that's going that's thinking about the next day, that what I'm going to do at practice,
Right.
or
Sure.
I'm thinking about the game that I just had and I'm thinking of ways that I can change it for the next day, right? So it's tough sometimes because you got to find that mental balance of being present when you're away from the game, right?
Hmm. And it's like, and I think you're also in a one of the perfect situations where you have this up and coming program that obviously we spoke about McKeer, and just being able to have somebody like that go through your program
Hmm.
and just being able to showcase themselves and showcase what it is that you guys have, and in a way putting you guys on the map in a way, right? Really, like, really helps out. I think because I think it sounds crazy, but like I think players have to it's really see it to believe it. So for for Makira's old teammates, having seen that he was able to go and have success from there, it makes it easier for them to kind of like buy in and just like and keep doing what it is that you're doing.
100%, man.
Hmm.
100%. Because like you said, it's different seeing it from someone that you're seeing online, and
Hmm.
it's different from seeing the guy that you've been with for 8 months do the exact same thing. Like you said, it's very, very eye opening. Like I
Hmm.
can tell from, because we have 7 guys returning from last year, and their mental of it is very different. Like they even bring up that experience of what Makir did.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely different to see one of your boys hands on do it.
Hmm. Now you guys are on the right track. So hey, at this point right now, it's secrets out. You know, we're tuning
Yeah,
in. We're all very supportive of William Academy. I'm happy that we got the chance to just start connecting, and just seeing that we have so many mutual friends. Like we said, the basketball world is super small. So
yeah, man.
so listen, any upcoming projects or upcoming maybe tournaments or different showcases or things like that that you guys have going on?
Yeah, so in a couple weeks we're in the Can United League, which
Hmm.
is nice. It's here in Toronto, which is nice. We don't have to travel to the States. And we're also in the North Pole Hoop Circuit that same weekend, so we're doing double time that weekend. So which is kind of nice because I know, guys like Wes Brown and Joe
Hmm.
Musa and stuff like that. Those guys are coming out to the games, which is great. So if you want to come out and see our boys, man, that's the weekend, December 15th, man.
And I'm looking forward for us to keep talking, keep building this friendship. I've heard so many good things about you, and just having this opportunity to just like talk to you more, and again, through mutual friends, just understanding like what you're about. I'm a big fan, man. So you keep it up. We'll be tuned in at anything William Academy. Um, yeah, I'll definitely chop it up soon. You want to plug in your Instagram and plug in obviously William Academy Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. Our William Academy is William Academy underscore athletics. Definitely don't do the William Academy underscore Coburg. That's just the academic one. Follow the athletic one. That's
Yeah.
the one that we run. And for myself, it's just Coach Mike Chambers
Mm,
on Instagram.
really, really cool guy. I encourage people connect. If you have any questions or anything, please, please, please don't hesitate. Mike, it's been a pleasure, man.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.